Hi vinyl community, my name's Dale and this is my introduction to the vinyl community. I've probably ashamed to say I've been watching VC videos for many years, and I have liked, commented and subscribed, but as yet I've never made a video, never taken the plunge. But we're in desperate times now, desperate measures, and so I've been enjoying the plethora of VC videos that have been around the last few weeks whilst everyone's in isolation, and I thought, well, if I'm enjoying it, perhaps I should contribute in some way. I may never post this video, I'll see how it goes, and you may not be interested in what I've got to say, but hopefully I've got something interesting to show. So there have been a number of threads going around, but I thought that to start with, what I'd show is what I've picked up this year. As I said, I've been a VC member for many years. I think a VC member, although I've not posted any videos, so I don't know if that qualifies. And it's really influenced my record collection. I think now I pick up probably half of the records I pick up are VC inspired, and half from other sources, and so that's really essential to my purchases. So, and hopefully I'll kind of explain some of that when I show some of the records. So this year, my New Year's resolution was to only buy 10 records a month. I've broken that, but part of that was down to a little splurge when it looks like shops were going to shut down. I had a bit of a splurge and bought a few more records. So I've bought 40 records this year. I'm not going to show 40 today. I thought I'd start with 10, see what I end up saying, see if it's worth posting, and then maybe do the rest in a few videos later on. So my first acquisitions were back in January. There was a record fair, 4th of January I think it was, in the town where I live. So I went along to that and I managed to get 3 things, good purchases I thought. So the first thing I bought was an original UK copy of Heyday by The Church. So I was put onto The Church by a VC member called Martin Parrott, who in one of his videos said he thought they're the best band that he'd ever heard, and so that got me interested. I listened a bit on Spotify and earmarked this album, Heyday, and another one called Starfish. They were both on my want list, but never been able to find them in the wild in the last sort of couple of years. But there was a guy at the record fair. He had 3 or 4 Church records. He didn't have Starfish, which I think was my first choice, but he had this, a lovely pristine UK copy. So I picked it up. I paid a little bit over the odds for it, but as I say, you never see them in the wild, so I was happy to get that. And it's brilliant, sort of neo-psych jangle pop. What I should say with most of my records, again, I'm a little bit ashamed to say, it's all about it's the thrill of the chase and the acquisition. A lot of this, I get records, I play them once or twice, I file them away, and then they'll go on rotation, which might mean they don't come out for ages. It's not like the old days where you only bought records with your pocket money, and you played it to death until you'd saved up enough pocket money to buy the next record. So yeah, I think probably still get too many records and don't get time to really immerse myself in them. But this one, so I played it a few times. I'd already played it digitally, and yeah, this is a great album, and it's near the top of my acquisitions for the year. Second album I found at the fair was an album that's been shown on the VC quite a lot. This is Art and Supernatural Fairy Tales. So this is a 68 psych album. I think it's 68, or certainly late 60s psych album by a band that went on to form Spooky Tooth. I nearly pulled the trigger on let me just move my PC out of the way there. I nearly pulled the trigger on the Spooky Tooth box set a few years ago and didn't, because I'd had mixed reviews about the pressing quality. but found this. It's a mono copy, but it's not a first, but it's on that lovely and probably my favourite label, the Island Pink Rim. Love the Island catalogue and love that label. So that's a good pop psych album that I was pleased to get. The next album I got, again, pristine copy, an original German copy on the label of Ashura Temple's Inventions for Electric Guitar. So it's either an Ashura Temple or a Manuel Gertsching solo, I'm not sure quite which. This is beautiful instrumental krautrock, if you like that term. Very mellow, lovely instrumental, Floydian, to a certain extent. Yeah, as I say, this is absolutely pristine. I had to pay up a bit for this, but I got a good deal from my normal vendor, go-to guy, my dealer, called Clive. He gave me there's a label there. I think it's a quadraphonic press, but I haven't got any quad kit, so we had to test that. So that was the record fair. So I thought 3 good purchases there for the start of the year. So the next acquisition was a new issue, the new record by Nicolas Godown, who is half of the band Air, the French band Air. So this is his latest solo album. First listen, I thought, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Not as good as some of his previous solo work. So I've got a couple. Excuse me. So Air. So I think a lot of people in the VC will be familiar with this record. This is probably Air's tour de force from the late 90s. I've also got this, which I think I need to investigate a bit more. This is a soundtrack. So I'm a little bit in the middle on this, but certainly this album is fantastic. But Nicolas Godown a few years ago came out with this album, Contrepoint, I think it's called. Excuse my French. This is a good album, really enjoyable kind of mix of instrumental, kind of electronic, with some voice, some processed voice on it, bit like Air did. So really good. And then another album that he brought out, which was absolutely fantastic, was a soundtrack album to a French crime series, Au Service de la France. This is fantastic kind of 70s funky jazz, soul, funk instrumentals. Really good album that I really enjoyed. Anyway, back to this one. So I've played the second time I played this, actually. I thought it was really good. Again, it's got these kind of processed vocals in some of them, you know, to be honest, I think I really like the instrumental sections, but the vocals are fine. And you know, this again is a good issue, a good album. Next album I acquired is this album, Quatermass, I think 1970, early 70s, certainly prog staple, quite rare. This is a music on vinyl reissue. I think I pulled the trigger again on Amazon when it kind of hit a price I liked, and this is on, I think it's a limited press on grey vinyl. I mean, music on vinyl do a lot of these limited presses for the first runs of some of their albums. I mean, they're normally about 1,000, 1,500 presses, so I don't know how limited that is. And yeah, this is a good prog album. I already knew it, and it was on my wish list. Didn't think I'll ever find an original, so I was happy to buy a reissue. Next album was from another record fair I went to later on in January. Picked up a couple of things there. So I picked up this. Only picked this up really on the price. There was a kind of seller there who had a whole stack of records, boxes of records that were £3 each, and the other dealers had already picked through it pretty quickly. Although I always try and get to the fair early and before it technically opens. I was still a little bit later to the party on this, so I saw that some of the other dealers had armfuls of records, so he must have had some pretty good stuff. But I still managed to find this. I think it's got a little seam split, but vinyl plays great, and you know, £3. Happy with that. Another record I picked up was this album, an original UK press of the Buzzcocks debut album. So fantastic punk, post-punk, pop-punk. Buzzcocks really great. You know, I'm not a massive punk fan, but I do like the Buzzcocks, and over the last year I've managed to get this album and their kind of other sort of 2 albums in their first 3 albums. Again, this is a lovely pristine copy with the embossed sleeve, and in fact I've got 2 copies of the record. I went to a car boot sale where somebody had this with no sleeve, and it was again an excellent copy, and I've got an excellent copy in the sleeve, so I've kind of got a spare copy of the record, but not of the cover. And this is from another record fair last year. Didn't cost me too much actually. It's a little bit of a crackly pressing. It's not brilliant, and I'll probably look for an upgrade if I can find it. But yeah, I'm happy with those, and I'll probably stop there. I've got the singles album on digitally, and don't feel the need to get that on vinyl. So I'm happy. I think I'll stop with the Buzzcocks unless someone says that, you know, I'm missing out on anything with these first 3 albums. So yeah, happy to pick that up at the fair. So that's all I got from that record fair, with those two albums. I was trying to stick to my 10 records a month, and so being a bit choosy about what I pick up. So the next record I picked up was another online purchase from the label itself, and this is actually a 2018 release, 2019 release I think, and this is the last album by a band called I forget the name right. They are called A Winged Victory for the Sullen. In fact, if you just hang on there one sec. I can't find it. I've got an album that they did it a few years ago, and really enjoyed that. It was kind of neoclassical. Just wait, pause 1 sec. Back again. Sorry, I did find it. It's called Atomos. This is a double album. It's really good. Again, neoclassical, ambient, call it what you like. So the actual album itself is great. It's brilliant, kind of dark, atmospheric, ambient kind of neoclassical music. Great to have on when I'm commuting to work on the headphones. The only sort of disappointment was the pressing. It's a bit crackly and I had a few ticks on it, so I did go back to the label. They asked me to send a little sound clip in, which I did, and they sent me another copy. So I've got 2 copies of this one that's a bit crackly, and this one which is still not brilliant, to be honest. I've cleaned it a few times, but it's okay, and I'll kind of call it quits there with them, because it's from the label, and I don't want to kind of diss the label too much. So obviously they're doing their best. The next record I got was from a charity shop, but it was from Oxfam, so these days you have to pay up in Oxfam. You don't get many bargains, but I still got it from kind of under what it goes for on Discogs. And this is, again, another kind of neoclassical record from the 80s, I think, by Virginia Astley, called From Gardens Where We Feel Secure. And this is a beautiful, textural, sort of neoclassical stroke ambient album, very much sort of like the cover says, kind of spring into summer type listening, and you know, this pristine copy. It's a little bit of crackle on it, but I think that's the pressing, that as it was, nothing to do, you know, there's not a mark on the record, but and because it's so delicate, you hear those things which yeah, typically I don't buy much classical music. Well, I'm not a classical music buff anyway, but I don't buy much on vinyl. I buy it on CD because you know, because of that kind of massive dynamic range it has. Often I think it suits CD. It's probably a heinous crime to say that on the Violiner community. And then the final album in this video, which was, you know, my final January purchase, is this album by Jade Warrior, and this is another one that's been on my wish list for a long time, on my Amazon wish list, and you know, never thought I'll find a Vertigo Swirl a copy, and I was right. This isn't one. This is a Repertoire Records reissue. Repertoire have done quite a lot of reissues in the last few years of some of the Vertigo albums. So I've got a Warhorse album and the what are they called? Sorry, Affinity. I've got an Affinity issue, and I've got a few, and I've had some actually. Not Vertigo, but I've had the Zombies reissues as well on Repertoire, and they do a really good job. They well, in fact, this never was because this has got a kind of reissue type sleeve that's a bit like the Reprise. So just to prove I'm not talking rubbish, I will pick out. So this is the Affinity on Repertoire, and what I was talking about is when they do a reissue of a Vertigo, what they tend to do is do a little bit of a mock-up of the Vertigo label and the Vertigo sleeve on their records. It's clearly not supposed to be a counterfeit. It's not just like it, but it's a little bit of I guess a homage to it. So that's me. That's probably it for now. Just thought I'd try this out. I may not post it, particularly with a few of those breaks while I've been diving around. I may redo it actually with the records to hand. But yeah, please comment, say what you think, and I may do some more about some of the other purchases that I've made in February and March. Cheers for now. Bye.